Thank you. Um, Welcome to my presentation on a new approach to video note-taking. It's by Devin Tan, Haochen, and my mentor, Dr. Sun. The overall background trend is that over the past 20 years, we see a seismic rise in the usage of online learning platforms. Some interesting websites include Udemy, Coursera, and the Royal Institution on YouTube. If you ask me, is this a future? I would answer yes. Our technology has enabled us to create online group lessons that provides a better educational experience than regular group lessons. Just a lot of people would just prefer to stay in their home and watch a video rather than going out to a 300 people lecture. Of course, this new online learning community and system is not perfect. In fact, there's a lot of flaws to it, and our project is aiming to solve one of the flaws. These flaws include lack of sociability, the lack of engagement, and also lack of note-taking. We devised a solution that helps students to take note while watching these videos and help them stay engaged instead of just passively watching the video. We're helping them to try to actively learn the information by staying engaged while not distracting them. Understanding the problem, the current note-taking system, such as switching tab to a Google Doc, Evernote tab, or writing on paper, when you're watching a video, you just switch to a Google Doc or you write note on the paper. Those are too primitive for our current generation. We need something new. There's a lot of problem to them too. First, there's the lack of active engagement. When you're switching tabs or when you're writing on paper, you're purely writing on the paper. There's no questions being asked. There's no summaries. There's no information being stored. You're purely watching the video and writing down what the video says. And that is not perfect. Purely input-based learning is always not a good solution to hard problems. And second, there's a lot of distraction posed by those techniques. When you switch tab to a Google Doc, when you're switching tab, you look at the other tab and Facebook's, and yeah, now you're not learning anymore. And when you're writing on the paper, of course, there could be books near you, and you could be grabbing that book and start reading some random books instead of focusing on your lecture that your teacher assigned to you. Two core problems: lack of active engagement and very huge distraction. So the project objective is that we're trying to create an active learning tool that cut down note-taking time, improve student engagement, and decrease the trouble. Because nowadays, if you give the user trouble, the user just ditch your app. Introducing parent note. The core stack that we use to build the project is we use Node.js as a backend server handling, a framework called Express. We use React.js for the front end, and HTML, CSS, of course, for the styling, and a very interesting tool, mustache.js, for our unique purpose, which is formatting the note. Is another advantage of our applications that I will talk about later. Here's the implementation details. For the front end, the user will just take note while watching the in-app embedded player. Some of the core features include embedded video players, intuitive note sections divided into questions and informations. For the backend, we have formatting with the templating language and generates a PDF, sends a file as a blob, which stands for binary large object. It's a common way that web application used to download files to the front end. Here's some live demo. I hope you can still see the screen. I'm trying to find, there you go. I already have everything ready now. What you could do is find your favorite YouTube video. In this case, I found a calculus course. Of course, I don't know what they're talking about, but I hope you know, since a lot of you are college level. So I'm just gonna paste this here and pretend that I know what calculus is, and play the video. Here's where the user experience begins.
To take the average of a finite list of numbers, we just add the numbers up and divide by n.
Pretending I'm the user, and I'm watching this video. Now I heard a finite list of numbers, so it assumes that it is a very important piece of information. I don't have to worry anything about formatting the note, about where to place the information, where to format it, or how should I format my Google Doc. Those kind of considerations are out of question because it takes too much time. In Paranote, you simply type down the information. And you see, currently it doesn't look that good, but don't worry. When you click on PDF button, it will generate the note automatically for you. And there's also a neat, unique numbering, which you can use to find the section of the video later on. Just gonna type some more information.
In summation notation, we write the sum from I equals 1 to n of qi, all divided by n. Finding the average value of a continuous function is a little different because a function can take on infinitely many values.
And here's where the active engagement part comes in. You see, when students are taking notes, they often just write down information. That's one of the service statistics we found through the data that we will present to you later. But they tend to always just write down information. But according to Cornell Note System, which is a solution designed by researchers at Cornell University, student learn the material best if they also write down questions and summaries. And here's where Paranote shines, because here you can write down questions. After you write down questions, when you click on PDF, it will generate the questions and information in the Cornell Note format. If you know what that is, Cornell Note format is basically a note-taking system where you divide your paper into 3 sections: questions, information, and summaries. According to the researchers, this is the best solution for active learning, where you're actively using your brain instead of just taking information. If I click on PDF, I could download my PDF, and here's the note that generated from the server. I will explain to you how the server managed to generate the note later, but here's the information where there's a unique timestamp for each information and formatted in the Cornell Note fashion, so you don't even have to worry about your note formatting. Of course, this is a very primitive prototype. You can see it's not really pretty, but in the future, it will be improved drastically to make it look better and more intuitive. Now, going back to the presentation. Here's the part where we generate PDF. First, our server receives a request to the client asks it for the PDF. It first will format all the information all the information in the front end, such as here, it will first taking all the information that the client is sent to the server and use mustache.js to convert that into an HTML file. As I said earlier, mustache.js is a templating language. And then it will use a headless browser library, Puppeteer, to convert the HTML to a PDF and following the Cornell Note formats and the PDF to the requesting client common web app. Here's some data that we found, which is really interesting. For users that don't use Paranote, you can see that they often tend to not write summaries or not ask questions. And that's really depriving them of the active learning part of experience. When they're using Paranote, it reminds them to actually write down summary sentences and write down questions. So that's one big plus when you're using Paranote, that you actually do consider writing down questions and writing down summaries. And according to researchers at Cornell, these summaries and questions really helps with your memorizing the content. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Khan. The presentation is very good. Does anyone have any question? Are there any questions? Yep. Is it an app or application? Is a program installed in a server? For example, if I want to use this, can I download the app or use it? Or do I need to go to the web page to use your application?
It's a web app. So currently I'm hosting on localhost, but then if I put it on my server, then you could just type in the URL and use it. But yeah, it does require a browser. So you can't just download it and use it because the PDF generation happens in the server.
Yep. That's great. Yep. Very
Thank you.
useful application. And yeah, thank you very much for your wonderful presentation.
I have a question for Mr. Han. Yeah. So when do you plan to post it up in the URL? When do you plan to post it?
Currently, my server is kind of broken right now, so unfortunately, I couldn't post the URL. But maybe later.
Okay. All right. Great.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Are there any questions? Thank you. Thank you very much. I would like to invite next presenter, Peiyuan Sun from the States, and Dr. Yuzen